This series, we're talking about evidence for God's existence. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, there's no evidence for God's existence.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize pastors were allowed to have side hustles as psychics.
Sometimes we have a semantic problem here. There's two different kinds of evidence that we mean when we're talking about the word. The first one is empirical evidence. We might ask the question, what temperature does water boil at? And the way that we do that is we take water, we put it in a laboratory, we heat it to the exact same temperature again and again and see if it boils at a consistent temperature. Being able to repeat that, observe it, and then measure it allows us to have what we call empirical evidence.
I'm just going to stop you there real quick. What you're talking about here is data. Data and evidence are not the same thing. The two cannot be used interchangeably. This empirical evidence you're talking about is data. Data is just numbers. Just because you have data doesn't mean you can prove anything with it. Evidence is just data that can be used to support a claim.
Nature and science and biology and cosmology and astrophysics points to the fact that we have forensic evidence that God exists.
So you're obviously going to present data to back up your evidence, right?
When we say that, we ask this question, what's the best explanation? What explanation best satisfies all the different necessary elements to our universe? So what do we see in our universe? We see this common idea of love and morality.
Common? No two people have the same ideas of love and morality. I just don't get mine from a Bronze Age book that supports slavery, rape, and genocide.
We see complexity and design.
Just because something is complex doesn't mean it was designed, and just because something is simple doesn't mean it wasn't designed. The two are basically unrelated.
We'll start by calling it complexity. Things that seem to be irreducibly complex, that work so perfectly together as if it were put that way. We see that the universe is expansive, that it's bigger, that all space and time came into existence at a certain point. And so we ask the question, what's the best explanation for why all those things are that way?
Ooh, I think I know this one. It's almost like things had billions of years to very slowly change little by little, gaining complexity as they went and becoming well suited to their surroundings. Why? What were you going to say?
We believe that God is the best explanation for the universe that we observe.
Should have seen it coming.
We'll start today with the simple one,
You haven't started yet?
which is the question that a lot of third graders ask. Why is there something rather than nothing? So think about that. The universe, why is it even here? Couldn't it much more easily just not be here?
I don't know. Probably.
It's infinitely more complicated that you are here, that I am here, that whatever device you're watching that's able to stream these different wavelengths throughout the whole universe. What is that? Why is it there?
While we do have bits and pieces and some ideas, the answer is we don't know. And that's okay. Just because we don't know something doesn't mean we have to, or should, make something up. Every civilization had their own creation story. It's just that now humanity has collectively learned enough to know that divine powers didn't have to be involved.
So we say, well, what is the universe? Is the universe eternal? Because if it's always been here, then it doesn't really need an explanation. It's just always there. Well, we know that the universe isn't eternal. In fact, cosmology backs that up. Every single working model that we have of the universe necessitates that there was a time at which there was nothing. It doesn't really matter who you ask. Let me even quote a couple of atheist astrophysicists and atheist cosmologists. There's a guy named Robert Jastrow. He's agnostic. That means he's not quite sure if there is a God. Director of the whole NASA program.
Dude, do a quick Google search at least. Dr. Robert Jastrow is not the director of operations at NASA. He never was the director, and he actually died in 2008. He was the founding director for NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. He was also far from an atheist. An agnostic trying to prove creationism is not an atheist.
He says, the essential element in the astronomical and the biblical account of Genesis are the same. He says, for the non-believing scientist, the story might end like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries.
Nothing about that quote provided any data or evidence that God created the universe. Actually, I would say that a quote, no matter who said it, cannot be used as evidence to prove the origins of the universe. Unless that person was a direct witness of the events, I'll stick to peer-reviewed scientific evidence based on data.
Quentin Smith, atheist professor of philosophy at Western Michigan, said, "The central idea of this cosmology, that means study of the beginning, that the universe exploded into existence about 15 billion years ago or so, seems like it was tailor-made to fit the theistic God hypothesis. In fact, Big Bang cosmology seemed to offer empirical evidence for the religious doctrine of creating something out of nothing," which is what Genesis talks about.
Now, I wasn't able to find this direct quote, and surprise, surprise, there are no sources listed for this video. I did read up on Quentin Smith though, and since apparently what we're doing is using philosophers to prove the origins of the universe, here we go. Basically, Smith's whole thing seems to be literally debunking this exact quote.
So if we're walking along, we see a golf ball on top of a mountain, and I ask you, why is it there? And you say, it doesn't matter, or it's always been there. Your answers are wrong. There's got to be an explanation for why it's there. Now think, if that golf ball, instead of being golf ball sized, was the size of a house, and I asked the same question, would it still need a valid answer? Yeah. Size would not dictate how important that question is. Now imagine that golf ball is as big as the universe is, and we ask the same question. What's that golf ball doing there?
And yet saying you read a book where Tiger Woods spoke that golf ball into existence doesn't seem like a valid answer, now does it?
Well, of course, we know that just because the golf ball got bigger doesn't mean it doesn't require an explanation.
Tiger Woods spoke an extra large golf ball into existence. And not having an answer doesn't mean science isn't searching for one. Right now, people are working to figure this out. It's just a matter of being able to say, we don't know right now. You don't know who hit that golf ball into the mountain, do you?
What we know to be true is if that golf ball had a beginning, if that universe had a beginning, then before that, if at the beginning of that, all space, time, and matter came into existence at one point, then before there was space, time, or matter, there was nothing.
Except God, apparently. Where did he come from? Isn't he just like an omniscient golf ball?
And if there was nothing, then we have certain needs in order to create everything, because nothing can't do anything. So we need something that isn't contingent, that isn't inside of space or time or matter, something that is immaterial, spaceless, timeless. That means there's something that we're looking for that was able to create everything that is neither spaceless, timeless, or immaterial. And when you look at Scripture, that's exactly the definition of God we get. That's the first piece of forensic evidence for why God exists.
Let me get this straight. Your entire argument for forensic evidence of God creating the universe is that God has no forensic evidence. Okay, thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more, go ahead and hit subscribe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments.